Hey, I'm Trapper Terry and welcome to another adventure. So today I'm going to tell you a story so scary about pirates right before Halloween, it'll knock your socks off. It's so scary. And remember, ye be warned, dead men tell no tales. So the year was 1667, and right off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean and also in the Caribbean, pirates were sailing around everywhere, plundering gold, stealing, doing all kinds of bad things. But on this one fateful day, a band of pirates were sailing straight into a deadly hurricane. Little did they know, they were on their ship, and it was rocking in the seas, just like this right here. And all of a sudden, the pirates knew they had to keep sailing into it. They couldn't turn around or their sails would rip. And back then, there was no weathermen. There was no TV to tell you what you were going into. They were going into the black storm. And as they sailed and the waves got bigger and bigger, all of a sudden, a huge rogue wave, whoosh, knocked over the ship. And down they all went into the bottom of the ocean. All those pirates sunk to the bottom and were either eaten by sharks or the bloody crabs and lobsters got them. But there were 3 pirates that happened to make it into the beach that day. And the reason they made it in, they actually were lucky enough to grab onto empty rum barrels that were floating. And the first one to make it to the beach was a pirate named Redlegs. The reason his name was Redlegs was because he was of Scottish descent with red hair and freckles and light skin, and his legs were bloody red. So all the other pirates looked at him and they said, "Hey mate, look at your legs. Your name is Redlegs." And from that moment on it stuck. Now the second pirate to make it to the beach was a real gnarly pirate that had fought way back in the Spanish War. And you know what his name was? No Name. And the reason his name was No Name, so all the other pirates would look at him and they'd go, "Arr, mate, what's your name?" And he'd go, "Ooh." And they couldn't figure it out, so they looked at him and they go, "Your name's No Name now." Because he didn't speak, and you know why he didn't speak? During the Spanish War that he fought in as well, the other Spanish soldiers didn't like him. They took a hot knife, because he talked too much, and they cut his tongue off. And he was mute from then on, so No Name made it to the beach. Now the third pirate to make it was this big jolly pirate, arr, named Redbeard. Why do you think his name was Redbeard? Because he had a big red beard, and all the pirates laughed at him and thought he was funny. But nobody, when they went into battle against this man, he would take his sword, heat it up on an open fire, and then he would run into battle. And as the men were coming at him, he would have the hot sword and whoosh, cut their head off. And just like a chicken, they'd run around in circles and fall down. What a horrible way to go. So everybody feared Redbeard in battle, but when he wasn't in battle, he was their buddy, their big jolly buddy. So, if y'all can imagine, what do you think the coast of Florida and the Caribbean looked like back then in 1667? Well, I had a report from Jonathan Dickinson's journal. It was around the year 1696, I looked it up. Jonathan Dickinson named what Jonathan Dickinson State Park is named for in his journal. He described it as a jungle. Jupiter Inlet was a river mouth, and the Hobe tribe ruled the area. They were one of the Haga Nation. That inlet was called Haga, and these Indians described in his journal were bloodthirsty, foaming at the mouth. Not what you want to run into. So on that lucky day, those 3 pirates were able to avoid those Indians, because if those Indians had seen them, Native Americans what they're called, but I'm going to stick to the story I was told. If they had seen them, that would be the end of those pirates. You couldn't even imagine what they'd do to them. So what those pirates did is they banded together, and the first thing as they came over the sand dunes, what do you think ran for miles? Swamp. That's all there was in Florida. It was nothing. Indians and swamp. But in that swamp harbored these horrible creatures called saltwater crocs and alligators. And if you were to go in there alone. There's no one to help you. So the pirates knew they couldn't go in the water. If they went into the water, these guys would eat them. Rawr, and they'd have a hook for a hand like me. So you know what they did? They climbed from tree to tree, and any stumps that were above the water, they climbed across them. And they knew they had to make it. They heard there was a fort west of that area. I think it was before Fort Jupiter. And you know what? They needed to make it to that fort. So on the first night, this dark, scary night for them, winds are still blowing, they can still hear the waves crashing off in the distance. The men held onto the trees at night as they looked down into the dark, murky pool of water. They saw the crocs circling. They could see the red eyes glowing. And the first pirate to get it, poor old Redlegs. He was up in the tree trying to sleep, and the wind blew just a little too hard, and he fell right into the croc's lair. Crocs ate him. Sleeping up in a branch. Couldn't talk. And that night, Redbeard was snoring away. And No Name said, because he couldn't speak. And when he did that, he lost his balance and fell head first right into the croc's mouth. And that was the end of him. So, believe it or not, on the third night, the last pirate left was Redbeard. And what do you think he did? He slept in the tree and he was fine. And the next morning, he jumped out of the trees onto dry ground and worked his way all the way to the fort. And as he was walking up, he noticed in the distance soldiers in armor. And he looked at them carefully and he thought maybe they could be Spanish soldiers, which is really bad because the Spanish soldiers saw you and you were a pirate, you were hung by the neck. So what Redbeard did was he stopped dead in his tracks and he heard in the distance, "Mira, mira, bandito aquí, miñano muerto." And he knew what that meant in Spanish because he had also fought in the Spanish War. He knew that meant, look, there's a bandit, a pirate right there. Tomorrow we're gonna hang him. So you know what he did? He played stupid. He said, "I know, or speak of the Spanish." Because he knew if he said that, they would invite him in and give him food, and the next day, he'd have time to escape in the night. That's how it was. The Spanish had these rules. So right away, he heard him say, "No problema, senor. Bienvenidos, welcome." That meant welcome. Come into my casa. Entrar a mi casa. Mucho comida. Mucho beber. Tú, for you. Fiesta noche. Big party tonight. So that night, he ate and drank. He fell asleep. And guess what? He slept with one eye open. And you know what? In the middle of the night, Redbeard snuck out, crept off into the jungle, traveled for 3 days. And the first morning, when he was traveling, the soldiers woke up and they said, "¿Dónde está bandito? Todos están despedido," the captain said. "You're all fired." Too late, Redbeard had a head start on him. He worked his way through the swamp, avoiding crocodiles, giant snakes, rabid creatures and wolves, spiders, you name it. And he made it all the way back to the beach 3 days later. And what do you think the first thing he did when he got to the beach? He looked down, he picked up gold and silver and emeralds on the beach, and in his big hand, he went, "Arr, I'm rich, I'm gonna live here forever." But just as he said that, Chief Cypress Alligator, up in the woods, pulled his bow and let it go. The arrow went straight through the back of Redbeard's neck, and the man fell dead on the beach. And in his hands, he was clutching gold and silver and 2 big emeralds. And right there, the chief walked up and decapitated Redbeard. And he took his skull, like this skull right here, and he jammed the 2 green emeralds into the skull. And he walked down to the beach, only a beach that I know where it is. And I've been looking for it for 20 years, and I'm gonna find it one day. And the chief stuck the skull in the rocks, and before he did it, he danced around and went, "Hey!" For 3 hours he danced. He put a curse on that skull. And if you find the skull, if you find this skull and you look into its eyes, in 7 years, your eyes will roll back in your head and turn black. And you will turn into an octopus. And you don't want that, mate. You'll be a goner. So don't go looking for it. Don't do it. You do not want this curse. Leave it up to me. I will risk my life. Each emerald's worth over $1 million. The gold and silver's worth a lot. I'll get it all. And then one day you'll get to see me, not as an octopus, but a very rich man celebrating with my gold and silver, throwing it up in the air. Arr! I can do more. I've got a bunch of them. And if you like this, please like, please subscribe, please hit all those notification buttons. Tell your friends to check this out. Don't search for the treasure. You don't want the curse. And I want to give a special shout out to the very end to my friends at Sea Treasures, right off of Hope Sound in US 1. You got to go there. All this pirate attire and gear that I have, they sell it there, along with shells and shirts and everything. So again, I hope y'all like this video. Beware the curse, and remember, dead men tell no tales. See y'all in the next adventure.